What do you believe? This is a very important question. What do you believe? It's important, but you hardly ever hear anybody ask this question. What do you believe? I have never in my life had anyone to ask me this question. What do you believe? You probably ain't never heard anybody ask you this question. People always want to say they believe. I'm a believer. But not many people ever say what they believe in. People always want you to know, yes, I have faith. But not many people ever say what they have faith in. What do you believe in? And that's very important, because what you believe, the way you believe, what you put faith in, actually controls what you do. What you believe and what you put faith in actually controls what you can and cannot do. What you put faith in controls how far you can and cannot go. What you put faith in is what controls what you can and cannot have. What you believe and what you put faith in actually controls what God can do for you and what God can't do for you. It controls what God will do for you and what God will never do for you. What do you believe? Because God works. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. God works. When you do God, God works. So if God is not working for you, something is wrong with your belief. Something is wrong with your belief system. If God is not working in your life, there is something seriously wrong with the way you are believing or applying your faith. And many people are just not believing right. Many people are just not living by faith right. Many people are just not trusting God right. If you are believing according to the word, you're believing what God said. That's it. If you're believing based on Bible, then you just believe what God said, period. If you have faith according to the Bible, then you are putting faith in what God said, period. If you are trusting according to the Bible, then you trust what God said, period. My life changed for the better when I started trusting what God said. My life changed forever when I started believing what God said. Everything in my life changed, and I'm forever changed because I started trusting and putting faith in what God said. My faith is in what God said directly. My faith is in what God says indirectly. That's what I believe. I believe what God said. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care what the circumstances are. I don't care what I have to go through. I don't care what I have to deal with. I believe what God said. Well, why are you doing that? Because I believe what God said. How are you able to do that? Because I believe what God said. How are you able to get that? Because I believe what God said. What do you believe? Well, I believe my pastor. Well, if your pastor ain't saying what God said and you're believing your pastor, you're not believing right. That's why you can't do what you need to do. That's why you don't have what you need to have. That's why you're not where you need to be, because you're not believing what God said. A lot of people just simply believe in themselves, and that's not good enough. You're supposed to be believing what God said. A lot of people put their faith in what they can do, and that's not good enough. You're supposed to put your faith in what God said. A lot of people trust in their own intelligence. They trust in their own abilities. They trust in what they know, but they don't trust what God said. And that's why you're not where you need to be. That's why you don't have the things that you need to have. And that's why you can't do the things that you should be able to do, because you're not believing, trusting, and putting faith in what God said. And when you're like this, you end up trying to itemize your faith. You end up trying your best to believe God that I can get this house. You're struggling to stay in faith for a house. But God's faith, biblical faith, don't work like that. And it's hard for you just to try to have faith for this house if you don't already have faith in what God said. It's a struggle for people to try to believe that they can buy this car. So you're trying your best to stay in faith as you go to this car lot and try to buy this car. You're hoping that it works out. But that's because your belief is not in what God said. You're trying to itemize and believe for the car, but you're not believing what God said. You're trying to itemize and single out the house. I'm going to trust that I get this house. No, you need to be trusting what God said. I'm trying to be in the faith and keep believing. I'm trying not to doubt that I'm going to have the money I need by next week. You're trying to itemize in order to get this money. You're trying to itemize your trust, belief, and your faith for one situation. You're trying to use your faith to deal with one issue, when the problem is you're not believing and trusting what God said. Don't try to believe for one particular thing when believing what God said gets you everything. Don't try to believe just for this car. If you just believe what God said, you will get multiple cars. Don't just try to trust God because you need money by next week. Trust what God said, and you will get more money than you need by next week. But the importance is not in itemizing your faith. The importance should be in trusting, believing, and putting your faith in what God said. Because what God said covers everything. What God said covers it all. But do you believe what God said? That's why this is one of the most important questions you will ever answer. And because I believe what God said, the way I live is totally different. The way I think is totally different. The things that I do is totally different. The results that I get in my life is totally different. The way that I pray is totally different. I can't tell you when the last time was that I asked God to do anything for me, because I believe what God said. I don't know when was the last time I asked God to heal me, because I believe what God said. I don't know when the last time was that I asked God for money, because I believe what God said. The problem with people, the reason people have so many problems in life, is because they do not believe what God said. The reason people struggle with faith, struggle with doubt, the reason people have so many issues, so many complaints, is because they do not believe what God said. But let me ask you, what do you believe?